So remember the other day when we talked about, college football playoff expansion from, 2026 onward, and that date was getting closer, and the SEC and the Big Ten officials were beating because, of course, those two conferences hold all of the cards you feel for expansion, and they're the ones who are making, or at least helping assist to make the changes, or in this case, making most of the changes. We all thought that was just related to 2026 and beyond with an expanded playoff. Well, it turns out there might be some changes coming for this year's playoff, not in terms of the field, but potentially the procedures and more clarity. Get to that in just a second. Welcome in for Verticals Podcast, here, episode 74, here from a cool but soon to be frigid Jacksonville, Florida. If you can hear the fan in here, it's not because it's hot out necessarily outside, but it's because it gets hot in here when I do the show. But it will be frigid. I have it on authority that, according to my phone here, that it's going to be cold tonight here in Jacksonville after it was near 90 this time last week. So, what's up with that? But big show, college football playoff changes for this year. I got some thoughts on the DC drama going on with DC and James Gunn right now. We're not a big DC show around here, being the comic book company, the Warner Brothers, but there's some stuff going on with DC lately, and I haven't addressed it yet. Figured I'll address it towards the end of the show. Predictions versus reality continues with a pretty headline team coming in here. Florida State got sort of combining the Florida State predictions versus reality and a more of a broader topic, if you will, sort of a path for Florida State Mike Norvell for 2025. And I believe that's the show in terms of the rundown. So let's actually dive into this thing because we have a lot of things to talk about. As I said, on Wednesday, may do something tomorrow. Either I may record something and have it post for next week. Because again, I think with the schedule, I may not be able to do a traditional show, at least on Tuesday. So just keep an eye on that. May have something like an extra video or just a podcast only episode. Just an extra pod, I guess. It won't actually count towards the actual episode total. But very, very much looking forward to that. And just keep an eye on that on the socials at 4verticals _, or whatever my social is. I don't even know what my Twitter handle is. Let me make sure that's correct, or usually I do. But and we're live, by the way, too, if you haven't noticed, on YouTube. 4verts _pod. How can I forget that? So get some water real quick, and then we'll begin the show. So the last time I reached out to you guys, or last time we talked, cultural playoff expanding 2026 makes sense. Like I mentioned on Tuesday, this thing wasn't going to continue to shrink. It was going to get bigger and bigger, probably as the years go and the decades and whatnot come. So that's not a surpriser. Okay, that's not a traditional or traditional. That was not a surprise. It's not something that was unexpected. I don't know why I said traditional for, but it wasn't something that was not expected or unexpected. It was something that we sort of been expecting for a long, long time, and frankly, something that a lot of folks like Josh Pate and Cover 3 guys have been talking about just over and nauseum, that the playoff was not going to get smaller. Unfortunately, we can't go back because that's not the way the world works. Any realm of job category you go into, when things expand, like buildings and stuff, you don't destroy the whole building unless something, God forsakes, happens. But you get bigger, you expand things. And college football, you're expanding stuff. You have conference expansion. Conferences are getting smaller, they're getting bigger. At least the Power 2 are getting bigger. Big Ten, SEC, smaller ones are definitely getting smaller. The same thing goes to the playoff. It wasn't always going to stay at 4, stay at whatever 6, 8, 12, 32. At some point, you may get as big as the NCAA tournament, which I preferably don't like. I would hope we'd stay at 4. Okay, we went to 12 this year, whatever, fine. Then we are, I guess, moving to 16, 18, maybe even 20 teams at some point. So the reason why I say all this is because the Big Ten, the SEC, they're having their sort of symposium, their little meeting this week in, I believe, Nashville, Tennessee, or somewhere in New Orleans, I believe, one of the two. Actually, no, I think they're in Nashville a couple weeks ago. They're in New Orleans, I think, this week. Just drop something. Or wherever it's at. It's somewhere in the southeastern region. Why not? But they have their meetings this week, and it's that's sort of where the leakage and the dripping, if you will, from people like Ross Dellinger and stuff. Officially, that were saying, yeah, the SEC and the Big Ten have all the keys to the cards for playoff expansion, and they're going full steam ahead. And yes, they of course have to get approval from the Big 12 and the ACC. Grant you in a perfect world, they probably don't want that, which is understandable. But to kind of keep everyone happy, to kind of be all kumbaya, they have to make it so that even those conferences, in their little minds, like Greg Sankey and Tony Petiti, may not necessarily believe, those conferences are on the same standard as we do. They don't belong in the playoff, particularly the Big 12, because it is, all intents and purposes, a more glorified G5. But we love them for what they are. And there are lots of, as Josh Pate says, it's America's college football conference. It represents a lot of the fun things about college football, the uncertainty, the weirdness, and the craziness, and the insaneness that is college football. But may not necessarily produce a national champion per se, but to keep them happy, to keep the ACC happy to a certain extent as well, they get spots in 2. Big Ten, SEC are going to get 4+, which makes sense. Of course, the Power 2 get their most spots. The others, if you will, the remaining bigger, the bridge conferences, the bridge between the G5 and the Power 2. So that all stuff we covered on Tuesday. I'm not going to literally just repeat what I said Tuesday. But the new information that was not released out, that I think a lot of folks were hoping what was going to happen, including me, at least for this year, since again this is kind of the last year of the current format, or the 12-team format. So after, like I've been saying and everyone's been saying, after this year, to my knowledge, the 12-team format is, for all intents and purposes, is dead. So you can't, unless you want to revisit College Bowl 25 or College Bowl 26 video games, which will have the format, then be my guest. But that's the only way we can really revisit it, or just via YouTube. So with that new format coming out, we weren't really sure, at least to me personally. I didn't think we were going to get any significant changes. I didn't think so. I wanted there to be changes, particularly with the auto bid system and how it's laid out, and how, the rankings themselves and the playoff spots don't really correlate with each other. It's a little bit, it's kind of a bit of a smorgasbord of things. It seems like there might be some clarity to that, and that we might be getting some changes to that. So this is coming from, where is this coming from? Front Office Sports, sort of mentioning that there could be some seeding changes for 2025. That instead of, having auto bids and how the seeding sort of structured again, how it doesn't necessarily represent the top 4 teams in the rankings, because the rankings in the actual, when you order the teams in their, the bracket, if you will, it's not the same thing. It's sort of like in the NCAA basketball, where the AP and the coaches poll, which people will say those are irrelevant in college basketball. I don't think they are. They're fun to look at anyway, and they're, of course, not going anywhere because it's, they're institutional elements to the sport, both football and basketball. But the rankings and the AP and the coaches poll for college basketball is not the same with the actual, NCAA tournament seeding and stuff. It's not the same thing, clearly, because it's, larger pool of teams. And, there might be some correlation. Like, for example, the number 1 team in the country in both polls, probably, all intents and purposes, is going to be the first overall seed, like the number 1 overall seed, if you're ranking, or at least rating teams or listing the teams on 1 through 63 or 64. So that right there is the only correlation, I think, in terms of the rankings and the actual playoff seeding system, and basketball. Same for football. That's it. That's the only correlation. But in college football, exact same problem. But it's more of a problem because, again, in basketball, the rankings and the, the way the committee seeds the teams in the NCAA tournament, not the same thing. There's no relationship. There's no actual ranking that the NCAA committee puts out, which, why would they do that? That'll be kind of weird. Let the over pollsters do that. Playoff committee cannot do that. They have to release their poll. That stupid Tuesday show on ESPN that, frankly, I don't think anyone watches anymore, but they still do it because it's inventory. But hopefully in the future, I'm not saying I hate the guys on the show, like Kirk and all of them, but actually I don't think he's even been on the show lately, which don't blame him. But unfortunately, I kind of hope the show kind of does go away, especially now with the expansion coming, and how the way you finish in your conference and the conference standings actually play a role in who gets the seeds and whatnot. So there's no drama anymore. So there's no reason to do a stupid show on ESPN, wasting 30 minutes. But one of the things I didn't think was going to change is that we were going to get this seeding change, the way the process right now, and, having, the stupid auto bid system where, hey, you're in your conference, even if you're 8-5 team, a 9-5 team, you're in the playoff, which is like not all 9-5s are created equal. Some conferences are weaker than others. it was a bit of a googly glob thing. Not to mention the highest rated conference champs do it again. So like Boise State, for example, last year, did they deserve a first round bye? No, not really. At least the way you view Boise State in terms of like, I don't know, like was their strength of schedule heavily considered? It wasn't. Just a lot more procedural things that I would like to see be taken more account when it comes to like giving teams. Well, I mean, in the last year, the 12-team playoff, again, I believe that's the case. That this is indeed the last season of it. I think I'm right about that. I'm pretty sure I'm right about that. This is the last go around, and that's why I didn't think there were going to be any changes, because it's one of the last year of the this playoff format. No reason to make changes to it, because we're just changing it again next year. So I'm a little bit surprised that there are rumblings and stuff going around that there will be some adjustments to the seeding process, which teams go where, and maybe again, hopefully emphasizing strength of schedule. If you're beating teams that that maybe have a little more oomph on your schedule, if you have a tougher schedule than this other team, if you went 12-1 with that schedule, you'll deserve a first round bye. So sort of things like that. And look, I'm not that smart enough to go figure it out. I think folks and like Greg Sankey and Tony Petiti can figure it out for us, because that's of course they're the two powers that be, the two conference commissioners that will save college football. I said that sarcastically, not trying to be mean, but just I don't know. I kind of, like everyone else, would much rather prefer the commissioner to come in, but unfortunately we're probably a little bit away from that, even though it's getting more traction, as per the story from Dennis Dodd last week, or I think a couple weeks ago. But I'm glad they're at least making adjustments to this, because I think the uproar about Boise State getting the bye, certain advantages for certain teams like Ohio State having a tougher road, if you will, a tougher treachery to get to the national championship versus Oregon or Penn State. Sort of that not lining up like number one overall seed gets the toughest path, whereas Penn State, who was like the 9th seed or whatever, gets a very, Penn State friendly path, if you will. Sort of the opposite of what college basketball is. And look, as much as I don't want college basketball and college football to mirror each other, I will say the playoff committee and the committee for the NCAA tournament, the way they go through the procedure is a little bit better, in my opinion. Again, not to mention, they put out the rankings, the committee does, and whereas the basketball committee doesn't have a ranking system, so that's where all the weird, stupid confusion is. And look, I'll be honest with you guys, I didn't realize that was going to be the case, where the playoff bracket, the way that the seeding works, is again was not going to be the same as the actual rankings they put out. Like, it's going to look very different. So that's where the confusion was. And believe it or not, speaking of college football 25, the game actually, at least for me, helped me. It sort of taught me that, and that's someone that's the little bit of a kind of a, I don't know what you call it, like a blessing in disguise, if you will, I guess, with the video game happening. Giving us the chance to play out dynasty mode, the 12-team playoff, that we start to get to know the rules a little bit earlier, so we don't have to, we're not scrambling in November. So, credit to TA there for one getting the game back to us, but also letting us sort of digest, yes, playoff rankings versus the seeding, not the same thing. So hopefully with these new changes, again, with, more possibilities of, the way the seeding works again, the number one seed probably should not be getting a tough draw versus a 8 or 9 seed getting a really friendly 8 or 9 seed path. Hopefully that does change. Hopefully that will happen. It'll at least make this final year. I'm pretty sure this is the last year, because again, after 2026, I'm pretty sure is the year where it was only going to be a two-year experiment, and here we are, we're done with it. So again, I'm shocked that they're doing this. At least it's being considered and being reported by reputable people. I know Josh Pig, who will be on here a little bit later, is definitely going to talk about this. I think he's leading on the show again. So I'll be interested to see what he thinks of it. But for me, again, just to wrap up this segment, I'm glad they're doing this. I'm surprised they're doing it, because, again, I didn't think, again, with this being the final year of the 12-team format, because, again, we're making seismic changes to college football every 2 years now. I didn't think it was worth it to make all these changes. And then next year, we're going to a whole new format. So it's like, okay, we put all this effort in making these changes for something that we're not going to deal with next year. So it's kind of like, it's like the last day of school. It's like the last day before summer break. It's like, okay, you're going to break the rules. Like, there's no like punishment that's going to come unless the high school or whatever like travels you to college or whatever. So anyway, again, glad they're at least considering, and there's supposedly maybe some conversations about seating changes, the way the format is being laid out, especially with auto bids and stuff. I would much rather just absolutely burn and destroy auto bids because I think they're stupid in general. I don't think anyone should be guaranteed anything, at least in college football. And there's some folks in the NFL and stuff, and the NFL, NBA flybys will go, oh, what do you mean it's not guaranteed? It should be like that. There's structure, and it makes things simple and everything. Well, it's like, okay, so now you want a 9-5 ACC team getting a first round bye if they're highly ranked or whatever. It's like I would just rather have auto bids be thrown out. Thankfully, with the new format that Petiti and Sankey are coming up with, or at least collaborating with, that's going to be the case going forward with this 14, 16 plus playoff. So thankfully, we don't have to be doing this again, hopefully. And I think this will be the last, hopefully last year was just the last year. And then this year, there will be formal changes. And they'll say, though, if there are going to be major changes, I wonder what the folks at EA were going to do. Because to their, and we'll end up the segment here, but I'm pretty sure to their credit, the folks at EA, they just assumed that or at least I would assume that they thought that the playoff rules would be the next two games. So last year's game, playoff rules will just translate over to CFP 26. That's not going to be the case anymore. So I wonder if those guys over there are making some changes behind the scene based on what they're hearing, and maybe they're, they obviously have better sources or whatnot, and they're starting to, maybe make some minor changes. Because again, the game's coming out in like less than 6 months. So maybe they can fix that stuff, or maybe, who knows, but that's something I just thought of. Like, yeah, they're going to have to, if this is happening, there are going to be some major changes. That college football video game, CFP 26, probably also, I'm sure those folks in Orlando at EA are probably waiting like we are, just see what the new guidelines are, and it'll, of course, appropriately make the changes to the game. So we'll see. And based on what I've heard, those devs over there, unlike some of the other departments here at EA, Star Wars and Madden, at least when they were doing Star Wars games, RIP the Battlefront series, but at least the devs over with the college football team, they take care of us. They know what we want, and they obviously are big fans like we are. So I'm sure they're taking into consideration, just something I have just floated on my head there. And that's it for this segment. Get some water, and guess we will move on to the next topic, which should be fun because it's, why not go from another gloomy topic to another gloomy topic, being Florida State football. By the way, if you're here live listening to us on YouTube or listening to us on the Spotify podcast version, by the way, I know we're backed up on that again. Hopefully by this weekend we'll get things fixed up a little bit and sort of reorganized and sort of ironed out. But make sure you subscribe. Pretty simple. Just click the button, subscribe. It should be somewhere in your YouTube interface if you're on a phone, tablet, iPad, laptop, computer, TV too. Now, make sure you subscribe. You don't have to turn on notifications. You don't have to. It's not a requirement, but what is required is to subscribe. You have 4 of you. I know on average you get 2 viewers. So based on do the math, the 2 viewers watching the show are more than likely probably subscribed. So to the 2 or 4 or whatever that are watching this show that are subscribed, just make sure you are, double check. But if you're not subscribed and you're watching this, make sure you do. And be sure to follow me on Twitter at @4verge_pod and the podcast feed. And also like the streams too while we're at it. We're a fairly young show in terms of this. We're 74 episodes in, about to be 75 come next week at some point. So we've been doing this for almost a year now. So we're not the best college football show, but we're definitely one of the youngest ones, and we're fairly new. So how about that? So we are doing predictions versus reality. Well, at least we've been doing that for the past couple of weeks, numerous weeks. So we have Florida State on the docket this week and Texas. But we're also going to do a Florida State topic about, their path to win this year. So we're sort of combining that predictions versus reality and the segment on Florida State sort of into one. So it's like the whole enchilada. But then we'll do Texas here in a minute. So we're sort of combining two of these into one. So, a little 2-for-1 special here in the words of Data Cannell. But, so if you saw Florida State, what happened to them last year, went 2-10, just gross, horrible. Mike Norvell and company make some changes, brings in, make sure I get all the people, all the particular new staff members are correct here. So Gus Malzahn comes over. He resigns from UCF. I'm not going to get into the whole details of that. I think there was some writing on the wall that a change there was probably coming. I'm sure the folks over in Orlando probably not pleased with the way the program was trending over the last couple of years, and you bring in KJ Jefferson, and the whole thing just like implodes on you. So Malzahn ends up leaving, takes the OC job of Mike Norvell. They're friends. Is Gus Malzahn necessarily the gonna like reinvent the wheel up there of offense? Is he like the quote unquote offensive savant? No, he's not. Is he an experienced coach, a former head coach at Auburn? Well, I had some success there to an extent, even though what would you call success there being it's the toughest job in all of college football. So he had reasonable success there, reasonable. He's a very experienced guy. Well, that's pretty obvious. He's a very experienced coach. Him and Mike Norvell, they're buddies. They know each other. Mike Norvell sort of grew up in that system. So sort of a friendly comfort hire. Again, is he going to necessarily move the needle? Are you going to get like a national title contending offense for Florida State this year? Are you going to get a quarterback that's in a pass for 3,000 yards? No, I shouldn't be defending on that. Probably not. Less than 1% chance you do get like a 3,000 yard passer with Gus Malzahn, but like 99.9% chance you're probably not. It's going to be run based. You're going to run the heck out of the quarterback. KJ Jefferson was supposed to be that for UCF. Then they bring in Castellanos. Florida State does for Malzahn. So there you go. That's your running quarterback, as it's sort of a almost a requirement. That and transfers, because I don't. Pretty sure that Malzahn's track record with developing his own purebred and recruited quarterbacks has not gone over pretty well. Look at Jeremy Johnson, Sean White, and Bo Nix. When Bo Nix was at Auburn. Now, Bo Nix at Oregon, different story, had better talent, better proper coaching and whatnot. But Bo Nix at Auburn, yeah, it falls in the same category with the Sean Whites of the world and Jeremy Johnsons. And on the time Malzahn had a success at Auburn or really anywhere is a ready-made, sort of an already pre-made product that Malzahn, metaphorically just puts in the microwave, and there we go. You have an instant ready-to-make meal. Again, that's not anything wrong with Malzahn. I'm not sitting here criticizing him. I'm just saying, if you're Florida State, who you're expecting, a massive change in the offense and in terms of identity and some major changes, I think you'll be disappointed in terms of what you're going to get. But there's a lot of film with it too. You're going to have a good running attack. Again, especially with Malzahn, a ready-made quarterback, transfer guy, runner, pure runner, guy who has decent enough speed and can run around. Should have some success. Get it, and best. I mean, there's the best case scenario and the worst case scenario for that to work out. You have the running element. Go look at Auburn 2017-13 of Malzahn and him as an OC at Auburn with Cam and company and Gene Chizik. That's the highs. The lows is, again, 2016 Auburn, 2015 Auburn. 2018 Auburn, those years, sort of the low lights, if you will, of the Malzahn offense, and even in some of the really good years. Go back to the 2017 Clemson game, where the Malzahn offense put up like the lowest amount of yards in his career. I think that's actually still true. Actually, now I don't think it is, but at the time it was. But go back to Florida State last year. So he makes all these changes. More Norvell brings in Malzahn. I don't know why I went on a whole symposium on Gus Malzahn, but there you go. Brings in Tony White, probably the best hire, if you will, if you're a Florida State fan. If I was like if I went to FSU, or if I was someone who's invested in them, probably would say Tony White. Probably more exciting. Very experienced defensive coordinator. Some very, very good stuff with Matt Rule and company the last couple of years of good defense. I know last year was tenuous because part of it is they did face very elite teams, at least passing teams, Ohio State. So Tony White, very good recruiter, very experienced. I actually think that's probably, if you're looking at two new coordinator hires, that to me is the one I'm more excited about. At least I was a Florida State fan, but so they're what we projected for him last year is we thought the best case scenario was 10-2, way off. In fact, we were so off you could reverse those numbers and you had gotten the correct result. Worst case scenario, Also way off. It was 7-5. 5-7 would have been off too. Reasonable was 9-3. Totally off in Florida State. I think a lot of people probably were. Though I still think 9-3 would have been reasonable if they hit well in the transfer portal. If just certain things would have worked out for them last year. The defensive line would have played a little lot better. Better performance there. Given the ACC is what it is than them in the Big 12. It was kind of different for Florida State. They didn't take advantage of it last year, and it was one of the worst seasons they've ever had there, outside of Norvell's first year, which was 2020, and and also, it's not even the worst loss either last year. Norvell and company did lose to an FCS team. Just a little reminder there. So last year, as bad as it was, the losses they had in terms of the type of teams they lost to, and they didn't lose to an FCS team. So that's, you didn't have that. But we were off on them horribly. I think this year, and their path for Norvell and them to get on track is just make a bowl game. Go 6-6, 7-5, and also, that's something that Denny Cannell brought up yesterday on Cover 3. And also is a factor, could be, and in his case should have been, or should be for this year, and what success looks like is not only are you making it to a bowl game or going 6-6, 7-5, I think it's just how your team looks. You don't want the team quitting and guys getting mad on the sidelines and arguments start happening and rumors start coming around about, guys who were transfers that came in this year and they're one foot in, 1 foot out the door. A lot of tension and stuff. Norvell's not happy, and Malzahn's not happy, and Tony White's not happy, and that's you don't need that. And I do agree with Danny on that. And I know a lot of folks have beef with him. I never met the guy before. Danny seems like a good guy, at least in my opinion. But I do agree with Danny on that. Football takes some of it's a little bit sometimes pie in the sky, but generally, I actually do agree with Danny on this. I think it's not only just getting to a bowl game, but how the team feels, what's the chemistry like. Because last year's team. Bud Elliott, a guy who was very connected at Florida State, went to get his undergrad there. Very well connected, a lot of research, a lot of sources there. He's listened to his Nolecast, his other channel he runs, or he's part of. You'll know there's a lot of things going on behind the scenes, guys quitting and stuff, and maybe some tension and whatnot. Just the culture was pretty bad last year. You can't let that happen again this year. At least you would hope it doesn't happen again. Because if it does happen again, much to my chagrin, and I don't have much showing saying this, Mo Norvell is probably going to be on his way out. And not just him, it's also going to be, I believe, I think that's who he is, right? The AD Florida State, probably going to be out as well. That's something that Bud Elliott mentioned yesterday that, if Norvell gets to go, the AD's probably going to go too. And that was news to me, but that's just the business is. That's just how the business operates. Typically, if an AD's been there for a long time, it's thing down one has at Florida State. I'm going to check who was the AD at Florida State. He mentioned him yesterday. I just don't recall. Yeah, Mike Alford. So he's probably going to be on his way out if this doesn't work out. And just to double check, I'm pretty sure he has been there for a while. Yeah, for a number of years. So he probably going to be on his way out. I know there's some other stuff going on with Florida State, with the whole war chant ban and the stadium being under construction last year. Some of the external the external stuff wasn't good too. That not really necessarily football related, or purely football related. But yeah, if Norvell ends up unfortunately getting fired, Mike Alford's probably on his way out too. So at least that's what Bud Elliott's thinking. He's not necessarily reporting that, but that's just I think that's the vibe he's getting from people he knows and sources he has and connections. That's probably going to happen. You probably would see Norvell leave, the whole staff. You basically just flush the whole thing, flush 80 as well, and they've also had issues with the basketball program with not off the court issues, but I guess their coach is either retiring or being fired after this year. So just probably worst case scenario for FSU this year. They probably have to flush everything out if things go poorly. And I would imagine that that would probably mean, again, you lose some games pretty poorly. Again, the culture is a big deal. If the culture unravels, and then you'll make a bowl game. So that's the worst case scenario for Florida State, just looking at it very broadly. Best case scenario is, again, you get enough out of Malzahn. Again, Malzahn, not necessarily going to be reinventing the wheel, but it definitely feels like you're going to comfort hire, sort of something you can hang your hat on for Norvell, and just saying, hey, we have a guy that isn't going to guarantee me a national championship or guarantee me anything, but it's a hire. Again, Malzahn, experienced guy. You can reasonably make a reasonable judgment that you probably would see that hire being, we're going all in to make a bull run. So again, you also hire Tony White, again, very experienced defensive coordinator, good recruiter. I have no worries about him. It's mainly the offensive Malzahn. Again, not worried about his experience and his friendship with Mike Norvell. Is just, is the offense going to be what Florida State fans want? Is that going to be a definitive upgrade over what you had last year? Personally, probably will be a slim upgrade. Probably be a slim upgrade in terms of you're going to have success of running quarterback. You're going to have success, I would assume, in running the football. But in terms of your passing game and having, again, like a 2,000, 3,000 yard passer, probably not going to happen. And probably not going to happen. In some ways, not going to happen. So if you're expecting that, if you're a Florida State fan, sorry. But as someone who has studied, is a big fan of the spread offense, I know the Malzahn offense does not guarantee you're going to have a fantastic passing game. In fact, you're probably going to get a very below average to poor one. No offense to Malzahn, that's just the way the system works out. It's always been like that. And also, success again has been tied to a already pre-made, if you will, quote unquote, pre-made quarterback, or if you want to use a meal metaphor, a pre-made meal, and all you have to do is just stick it in the microwave, and there we go. So nothing against Malzahn or nothing against Mike Norvell. It's just, again, I get it. He's his buddy, his mentor, but it doesn't, and would not move the needle for me if I was a Florida State fan. If I were expecting a massive leap, if you were looking at this and more reasonably, like I would be looking at it, is okay. Again, you're bringing in Malzahn. You would expect things to be still a bit rocky, but I think you're looking at this more of like, okay, maybe this time next year, Malzahn company, if maybe him and Norvell can bring in more of the personnel that he would need to be successful, then we can look at a year or two under Malzahn as do see there in Tallahassee being, okay, you could maybe see more of a reasonable uptick and maybe a better, much better running game. So, but yeah, we missed pretty poorly on Florida State this year in the prediction versus reality. I think a lot of us in the industry, I say we, I'm not really technically a part of it, but I guess I am by default. I think a lot of folks in the industry felt the same way too. I think a lot of us probably were expecting a little slightly more better than Florida State, but the bottom falling out, pretty jarring. Get some more water there, and then we'll continue. You're going to get a good clip here. I think we'll finish under an hour. Have that on good authority. So with the Florida State prediction versus reality, that segment out of the way, the other side of this coin is Texas Longhorns. Very successful playoff run. Once again, one went away from going to the national championship game with Sark and company. I've already made my thoughts on Sark and company, whether or not he's the right guy for the job, or is he overrated? He's properly rated. In fact, he's a little bit underrated in my opinion. And yes, the right guy for the job. Again, looking at this progression, again, first year losing to Iowa State, Kansas, having the infamous Bo Davis rant. We've come a long way. Come a very long way from that night after losing to Iowa State and losing to Kansas to the week after to going game 5. Then after that, going 12-2, and then this year you went 12-3, I believe, or something like that. But I think Steve Sarkisian very much shows the right guy. I have no doubt in my mind he is the right guy. And by the way, some other news is coming out too with teams canceling spring games like USC and I believe Texas have announced theirs as well. So that's a little bit of a developing story. I may cover that a little bit next week. It'll be interesting to see what Josh Pate has to say about that a little bit later here. And he's actually a little bit earlier. So how about that? Both are getting 2 shows, listening to us. 2 shows for 1 here, 2 for 1 special. But Texas, USC, and others are either canceling their spring games or making changes to them. That's the new world of college football. It's the new reality, like I mentioned a couple weeks ago. But Texas and Sark, obviously, they're fine. Last year, or last summer when we did so went 13-3. Just man, it's so weird seeing a NFL-esque record and a college football team. I don't know. I'm still getting used to it. I'm still used to the 12-2 and like 12-2, 9-3, 10-3 records, 11-3s. I'm not used to seeing a 13-3 and college football. I don't know. It still feels weird. But we were spot on with Texas. Best case scenario was 11-1. Turns out that was more or less about what we got last year in the regular season. And if I recall correctly, I'm pretty sure that was correct. Scrolling here on the Wikipedia page. Yes, we were correct. So, yeah, we got the best case scenario right. How about that? So, best case scenario, we got right. Worst case scenario, 9-3. Was pretty reasonable. Again, most had injuries. Again, most of it, too, was the schedule. The schedule a little more lighter, as it turned out to be. Reasonable was 10-2. So, bottom line is we basically had a pretty good read on Texas last year. Very good read. They're a good team. I think us, like me and Josh Pate, sort of pitting them as being like this, first year in the SEC, probably being the SEC championship game. I think we're pretty much correct on that. We're also both ended up being correct on Georgia as well, being a team that went 10-2. So, yeah, that one with Texas we were pretty spot on with. Next year, sort of doing a little preview. What is to, I guess, sort of make a mini preview what's to come here. Since with this one's not really much to explain we got right or wrong, because we pretty much had a pretty decent read there. Defense for them, it's pretty good. I think offense took a step back. I think defense was still pretty much still consistent. Of course, they had some clunker games, 2 games against Georgia, and the game in the semifinal against Ohio State. Granted, the Ohio State game was a very competitive game. I think defensively you played as well as you probably could have if you were Texas. Of course, Arch Manning arrow starting up. I'm hype about that. Very interested to see how that looks like. So, I think in terms of, nothing against Quinn Ewers either. I think Josh Pete even has revealed this sense that, yeah, he even knew during the season that Quinn Ewers was not 100% healthy. Definitely not like injured or anything. It wasn't fully him. Sort of like the Joe Murrow thing where it's like he wasn't like officially hurt, but he kind of was hurt, like hurting, not hurt. So you do, I think, upgrade at quarterback. Your schedule, not to mention they've been recruiting like crazy. That's insane to see how much things have changed since Sark's been there. So you get Ohio State on the road week 1. Could be one of the best week 1 games we've ever had. I know people said that about Florida State Bama many years ago, and ironically they're playing this week 1 as well. I think it's either week 1 or week 2. I think it's week 1. So Ohio State, Texas, week 1 rematch. How about that? So you get your 2 G5s and it looks like an FCS team. Or actually 3 G5s. Would have been FCS, but it's Sam Houston who's now in FBS. So that, then it's at Florida, Oklahoma, and Dallas. Back-to-back road games against Kentucky, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Vanderbilt, sort of a more easier stretch there in the middle. Then at Georgia, Arkansas, then A&M at home for the rivalry game. So once again, a very reasonable conference schedule. Again, it's the same one as last year's, just the venues changed. So instead of Georgia coming to Austin, it's you going to Athens, and that's not going to be easy. It's going to be pretty tough. Same with going to UF early in the year, no less, since that's in October. Still warm here in Florida. I have that in Florida. I have an experience that it'll still be 90, 80 degrees. It'll still be pretty warm. It also could be a hurricane or 2. So that game, tentatively scheduled because of the tropics and whatnot, could move around. But yeah, toughest games already is looking ahead here. Again, Ohio State clearly. I think Florida. I know folks cringe at that, but I think that is a tough game. It's early too, so you're getting them early. So yeah, Florida early. Oklahoma, I guess, will be a challenge as well, and then Georgia A&M. So that's about 3 or 4 games I would consider to be trouble games. I think ones that are solidly trouble, if you were to go, like if you had to choose only 2, clearly Ohio State, Georgia. So once again, a manageable schedule, and Sark and company again with new quarterback, and unfortunately for Archie Manning, he gets thrown in the fire week 1 against Ohio State. But I think those folks out there in Austin have been preparing him for this. I think them peppering him in here and there last year after sort of redshirting his first year, or he did redshirt his first year, freshman year, and then here he is now his year of 3 being on campus. Pretty sure he's not losing his ID anymore. I think we've covered that. I think Arch has handled that issue of losing his ID, which was a meme for a while, but not anymore. So, handshake emoji for that. So yeah, once again, in terms of the conference, again, pretty reasonable. Again, we'll do our full, preview breakdown, record projection, starting this summer, again, after Memorial Day or around May or so. We will revisit that. So just a little preview. But yeah, Texas, unlike Florida State, complete opposite, fairly decent read on them. Be interesting to see what we think of them in the summer, or summer and late spring. So figured we would end the show. Well, I'm gonna get some water first, real quick. Figured we will end the show with a topic or a subject I don't really talk about that much, being DC. So the last time we talked about DC was the Superman versus Fantastic Four situation. Personally, like I said, then I don't really care about that. I know a lot of folks do care about that, but this is more serious. There's been a lot of drama there at DC right now. It's not good. The reason why this sort of inspired me to do this, or what inspired me to sort of do this topic, was they lost Daniel Craig, famous for being James Bond for over a decade, at least during my lifetime. Daniel Craig was going to be playing Sergeant Rock. I'm sure most of you don't know who that is. If you don't know, he's an old World War II WW2 character from DC, very obscure. Of course, fits in the whole James Gunn sort of obscure. Less than 1% of the population even knows who he is, even the comic book realm or pop culture. So he was going to play that character in a pretty low budget movie, sort of like the Joker movie. That's not happening. He drops out. That was sort of revealed today in the Hollywood trade, so that's pretty official because they obviously have contacts with the studio, and the studios, then Marvel, Disney, Star Wars, they traditionally like to get their information and news sort of influxed through them versus putting out something for themselves officially. So if it's coming from the Hollywood trade, then it's like 100% official pretty much. So that movie is going through a lot of turmoil. It's been pretty bad over there. I know Jeff Snyder on a John Rokas podcast with him and Snyder. I think they're live right now, actually, pretty early. And Jeff said a lot of stuff about DC, a lot to say. And actually, more Warner Brothers in general. They've had a lot of money issues. They've had movies being canceled or shelved or rent off as all of the above, basically. They've been losing a lot of money, and that's not a joke either. They literally have. It's financially, Warner Brothers is not in a good spot right now. It's pretty bad. I don't think a lot of folks are discussing that outside of just Jeff Snyder. I know a lot of folks don't like Jeff. Sort of his very the fact that he's not like tied in. He's not like really tied into the nitty and gritty, like the actual comic book like genre stuff. Like he's not like a big super fan. He's just a reporter. I mean, he has a ton of experience being a former writer for one of the trades. I believe those things Variety used to work for, if I recall. But he's very experienced. He's not stupid. So he knows what he's talking about. He has good sources. So he's been sort of spilling on Roka's show. Just a lot of drama going around about, the stuff that James Gunn's been doing, defending the whole Superman CGI controversy. The fact that, of course, the marketing, too, for Superman during Super Bowl Sunday, was it the Puppy Bowl? If we all thought Marvel and their marketing for Captain America 4 was abysmal at times, that was abysmal. Not to mention they've been canceling a lot of stuff. Again, the Sergeant Rock movie. They also have the Swamp Thing movie with James Mangold. According to what Snyder said, the reason why that movie is not happening anymore, to a certain extent, is that him and James Gunn, at least the studio there, Warner Brothers, has been, and this is not just with Mangold, it's been like this for all of their other directors, not including James Gunn himself, is that the studio has been pressuring all these other directors like Mangold and all these other people they've hired to basically play ball with James Gunn and do what James Gunn wants them to do. And those directors, like Mangold and guys who maybe see themselves a bit better filmmakers than James, they're not playing ball with him. And it's been a struggle. And they've really struggled to get projects off the ground. The Authority movie, by the way, if you don't remember that was announced like 2 years ago. Not happening anymore, according to Jeff Snyder. They're actually, I think the story was from Jeff is that James wanted to do the movie, The Authority. I think he was even going to direct it. And then Zaslav, his business partner, the guy who he hired, said, so we're doing a $200 million movie, and I'm paraphrasing here. So we're doing a $200 million movie on this? No. So that movie, for all intents and purposes, is not going to happen in the original format being live action. Which is strange because they actually have one of the Authority characters in this new Superman movie, which been already going to have the actress cast as her. So that's okay. Strange that you're introducing some of these characters, but they're not going to have their own movie. I mean, look, I get it. Plans change all the time, but for something that's starting up and a movie that was actually announced and you were actually beginning to cast characters for that, and now it's not going to happen, and at least happen in the live action realm. And I think Jeff brought up that a animated either a movie or show is more probable because it's a lot cheaper. So the bottom line is there's a lot of stuff going on at DC. A lot of drama, a lot of things getting canceled, and a lot of this is on James. Again, I get it. I think if there is an excuse you could use for this, look, he's new to this. He's not used to being in charge of all of this stuff. Maybe it's, you're working through the early kinks and the struggles of being a first-time studio head. And look, I get it. It's probably pretty tough, but I think the problem is not the fact that he's struggling, because that's somewhat to be expected. It's the fact that James is, again, sort of going the route that Lane Kiffin used to go, being a Twitter troll and sort of, getting mad at people and fans and whatnot. And because I know Josh Radin merits his own personal beef with him. It's things like that from a PR perspective, from a public image perspective. That's not good. And not to mention now that you're having all this drama and things getting canceled. It's not, the vibes aren't good over there. Yes, are there things that I'm looking forward to over there from DC and James Gunn? Yeah, it's a Superman movie. Despite the whole controversy and stuff, I'm excited for it. Am I concerned for it? Yeah, I'm sure there's some concerns there. But I'm not going to sit here and openly bash the movie if I haven't seen it yet. But would I be lying to you and saying that the marketing hasn't necessarily adjusted my faith in it yet? No. I would like to see better, more better promotional material from them. Not just having Nathan Fillion as Guy Gardner sitting on a green screen and smiling. That's not good enough. At least that doesn't scream to me good enough marketing. That's kind of that's very, very minor marketing. As someone who has had the privilege in sitting into organizational meetings about marketing and stuff and social media content, that's not the standard. Or at least that's what I think of the standard being at Warner Brothers. But it's not good over there right now. I was listening to Josh over at Dev Nerds on his stream earlier. Pretty vocal too about it, and that's sort of what inspired me to kind of bring this up, because he's literally the only one. Him and Jeff have been the only ones been sort of addressing this drama. So I figured, well, I may as well talk about it too. Look, it sucks as someone who was, had a lot of hope in James Gunn, and finally someone to actually harness the DC brand and actually move it in a direction where it's not, a billion things going on, and you have Zack Snyder doing his own stuff, and that stuff wasn't vibing, and the studio had to literally soft fire him from his Justice League movie, and they brought in Joss Whedon to do a zombified version of it, which is horrible. So I thought initially, at least at the once James was announced to actually be taking over DC, I gave him benefit of the doubt, and I still kind of am, that he was going to get things organized. He learned somewhat from Kevin Feige. Now, look, there's only one him. There's only one Kevin Feige, but I felt like that if James were, learning under Feige and stuff, and him sort of in a way playing a role in getting Infinity War moving, because again, if that first Guardians movie doesn't hit, which had, introducing the Infinity Stones and having Thanos and Josh Brolin first time he played that character in a more in an official way, or he's bringing that character in an official way, not being a post-credit scene, the Infinity Saga probably does not work the way it did. It's like, as much as people are bashing James Gunn, give the guy credit for helping shepherd the Infinity Saga and getting that thing sort of really kicked off of the first Guardians. So I feel like with his experience doing that and him coming to DC, it's in shambles, and they have not accomplished a whole lot, which is a good thing, right? Because he could be the first person to accomplish a lot of big things, and I still think James can certainly do that. But again, I'd be lying to you if I'm starting a little concerned here about they're canceling stuff. He's sort of going full Lane Kiffin troll mode on Twitter now, and he's becoming a bit of a problem, at least from a public perception standpoint. So, look, again, I'm still looking forward to Superman. I'm still probably going to go see it. But, again, I'd be lying to you if I'm a little bit concerned about, they're canceling stuff, this whole stuff about – it's not even that, too. It's like they're announcing weird stuff. And I think this, too, also plays into the budget thing, where it's like you're doing a Clayface movie, you're doing a Sergeant Rock movie. Like that to me screams you're not either you're getting told a lot of no's from, again, a guy that you're partners with, or you're getting yeses to things, or maybe you're getting yeses to things that are a lot cheaper, and maybe until you guys get better organized, you're putting out stuff to just be out there, and that that's not good enough, I think, for DC, and that's not standard for anywhere. Marvel, Star Wars, any studio, just putting out stuff for cheap and just saying, oh, we're doing it for putting out inventory. Well, if inventory is crap, no one's going to watch it. So that's my fear for DC, that the fact that they're going cheap, the fact that Warner Bros. In general has been in a horrible financial situation. Again, I think that's been sort of been underreported. This is bad. This is jarring. Again, all this can be remedied if Superman comes out, it does reasonably pretty well. Then maybe we can say, yeah, man, looking back, man, you remember back in February we were talking about DC and Warner Brothers and the financial situation and them canceling movies and doing weird projects on obscure characters just to fill an inventory. Man, look at Superman. It was like such a good movie. Man, DC's so back. That's totally on the table here. But there's also the other avenue where that movie is received poorly, and this thing gets really interesting from a drama standpoint. So that's what we'll spiel on DC. Don't talk about them that much, but we did today. So how about that? I have to get out of here. We will have probably not a live show Monday or Tuesday. I think I might try to do something either tomorrow or maybe some point this weekend to film something. So be on the lookout for that. Worst case scenario, there just won't be a show Tuesday, maybe a show Thursday night. So again, next week will be a little bit weird in terms of my schedule. So this might be the last time you hear me for a couple of days, but I'll let you guys know on Twitter when I'll be back in a full capacity. So until next time, until we meet again, again, before you leave, make sure to subscribe, like the stream, follow me on the podcast feed and on Twitter. Again, we'll get the podcast feed situated. We'll upload those episodes that haven't been uploaded yet. At least audio version only, not the YouTube version, because those are there until the end of time. So until the next time we meet up, enjoy your weekend. If anything breaks in between now and then, I'll give you guys my thoughts on Twitter. Maybe do a quick little video. But until then, enjoy the rest of your week. Take care, and we will see you guys in the next episode.